The performance model is just a way to look at how we as human beings function. And basically, it is that information goes into our brain, which we look at as a biological computer. And that information is processed in the brain based upon our software. That is, based upon the neuron patterning in the brain cells that processes that information and tells us what to do. And then, of course, we have a result over here. That is input, processing, output. And if we look at our source of information, we can look at sensory input as being one of the primary sources of our information as a human being. And that sensory input includes visual information, and visual information is not just vision acuity, but visual spatial awareness, depth perception, closure speed, visual tracking, all of the things about the quality of visual information going into the brain. And of course, then within the brain, there has to be some programming, some software in regard to interpreting what does that visual information mean. In addition to visual, of course, kinesthetic. That is, kinesthetic would be basically my balance, or what we would call our vestibular system. It's the ability of the body to remain balanced. In addition to that, the proprioceptive system of the body. A lot of people haven't heard about that. But the proprioceptive system of the body is the ability to feel movement and change of weight, etc. Very important in regard to athletics, but it's also important to everything that we do. So the proprioceptive system of the body feels that change of weight or movement, sends it through the nervous system of the body into the brain, and then we have some software in the brain to interpret what does that information mean. In addition to kinesthetic, of course, a very important source of information being auditory. That is what we hear. But it's not just that I can hear, it is what I hear. How do I interpret that? That's really important as an example in regard to music or other things where the auditory information, the quality of that information is really very important. And another source of information is what we call through our thoughts. That is, basically, it would have to do with focus and concentration. We all know how important that is. A lot of kids with learning difficulties have difficulty in regard to focus. A lot of athletes have difficulty in regard to focus or concentration. So let's talk about that whole area in regard to our thoughts, but also primary attention versus divided attention. That is, the ability to maintain attention, primary or divided attention, and execute certain activities. Multitasking. Multitasking is very important in regard to about anything that we do. And multitasking requires, and we'll talk about this more, but multitasking requires programming to do whatever those two things may be. That is, I can't do multitasking unless I have them programmed. I have to have them programmed, otherwise I'm doing alternating attention. So we can look at the big picture. That is, all of this information that goes into the brain, and again, it's processed based upon our software. And a part of that software would have to do with our psychomotor skills. That is, again, psycho meaning the brain. My motor is my body. A skill is the ability to do something at the subconscious level. That is, I don't have to think about it. It's programmed somewhere in here. My state of mind is really important. That is, if I have fear, if I have doubt, I don't perform at as high a level. If I have more confidence, then my state of mind is better and I have a tendency to perform at a higher level. In addition to that, my belief system. My belief system is a part of this programming of what I really believe about myself or what a child believes about themselves. In addition to that, behavioral traits. That is everything from whether a person is aggressive or timid, or they're an extrovert, or they're patient, or they're not patient. All of those kinds of behavioral traits impact the way that we function. So basically, all of this is processed and I get a result. That is, I have some output. And basically, it has to do with an action. That is, my body does something. Or reaction. I react to a situation or some stimulus. Or I make a decision. That is, this whole process of making a decision. As an example, in sports, that's very important. But then if I look at this whole thing in terms of, I can buy a new computer, take it home, plug it in, and you know what? It won't do anything. Why? Because I don't have any software in it yet. So I can put some software into my computer in regard to word processing. But it will do word processing. It won't do a spreadsheet, as an example. So I can put some programming in regard to play tennis, but that doesn't mean I can play the piano. I have to create the software to do that into my brain, into the neuron patterning in my brain. And the better I get at doing all this, the better my result.